Okay, we are continuing in Report from Iron Mountain. We're in Section 7, and this is Part 2. Number 4, ecological. A substitute for war in its function as a uniquely human system of population control must ensure the survival, if not necessarily the improvement of the species in terms of its relation to environmental supply. Number 5, cultural and scientific. A surrogate for the function of war as a determinant of cultural values must establish a basis of socio-moral conflict of equally compelling force and scope. A substitute motivational basis for the quest for scientific knowledge must be similarly informed by a comparable sense of internal necessity. Substitutes for the functions of war models. The following substitute institutions, among others, have been proposed for consideration as replacements for the non-military functions of war. That they may not have been originally set forth for that purpose does not preclude or invalidate their possible application here. Number 1, economic. A comprehensive social welfare program directed toward maximum improvement of general conditions of human life. B, a giant open-end space research program aimed at unreachable targets. C, a permanent ritualized, ultra-elaborate disarmament inspection system and variants of such a system. Number 2, political. A, an omnipresent, virtually omnipotent international police force. B, an established and recognized extraterrestrial menace. C, massive global environmental pollution. D, fictitious alternate enemies. Number 3, sociological control function. A, programs generally derived from the Peace Corps model. B, a modern sophisticated form of slavery. Motivational function. A, intensified environmental pollution. B, new religions or other mythologies. C, socially oriented blood games. D, combination forms. Number 4, ecological. A comprehensive program of applied eugenics. 5, cultural. No replacement institution offered. Scientific. The secondary requirements of the space research, social welfare and or eugenics programs. Substitutes for the functions of war evaluation. The models listed above reflect only the beginning of the quest for substitute institutions for the functions of war, rather than a recapitulation of alternatives. It would be both premature and inappropriate, therefore, to offer final judgments on their applicability to a transition to peace and after. Furthermore, since a necessary but complex project of correlating the compatibility of proposed surrogates for different functions could be treated only in exemplary fashion at this time, we have elected to withhold such hypothetical correlations as were tested as statistically inadequate. Nevertheless, some tentative and cursory comments on these proposed functional solutions will indicate the scope of the difficulties involved in this area of peace planning. Economic. The social welfare model cannot be expected to remain outside the normal economy after the conclusion of its predominantly capital investment phase. Its value in this function can therefore be only temporary. The space research substitute appears to meet both major criteria and should be examined in greater detail, especially in respect to its probable effects on other war functions. Elaborate inspection schemes, although superficially attractive, are inconsistent with the basic premise of transition to peace. The unarmed forces variant, logistically similar, is subject to the same functional criticism as the general social welfare model. Political. Like the inspection scheme surrogates, proposals for plenipotentiary in international police are inherently incompatible with the ending of the war system. The unarmed forces variant, amenable to include unlimited powers of economic sanction, might conceivably be expanded to constitute a credible external menace. Development of an acceptable threat from outer space, presumably in conjunction with a space research surrogate for economic control appears unpromising in terms of credibility. The environmental pollution model does not seem sufficiently responsive to immediate social control except through arbitrary acceleration of current pollution trends. This in turn raises questions of political acceptability. New, less regressive approaches to the creation of fictitious global enemies invite further investigation. Sociological control function. Although the various substitutes proposed for this function that are modeled roughly on the Peace Corps appear grossly inadequate in potential scope, they should not be ruled out without further study. Slavery in a technologically modern and conceptually euphemized form may prove a more efficient and flexible institution in this area. Motivational function. Although none of the proposed substitutes for war as a guarantor of social allegiance can be dismissed out of hand, each presents serious and special difficulties. Intensified environmental threats may raise ecological dangers. Myth-making disassociated from war may no longer be politically feasible. Purposeful blood games and rituals can far more readily be devised than implemented. An institution combining this function with the preceding one, based on but not necessarily imitative of the precedent of organized ethnic repression, warrants careful consideration. Ecological. The only apparent problem in the application of an adequate eugenic substitute for war is that of timing. It cannot be effectuated until the transition to peace has been completed, which involves a serious temporary risk of ecological failure. Cultural. No plausible substitute for the function of war has yet been proposed. It may be, however, that a basic cultural value determinant is not necessary to the survival of a stable society. Scientific. The same might be said for the function of war as the prime mover of the search for knowledge. However, adoption of either a giant space research program, a comprehensive social welfare program, or a master program of eugenic control would provide motivation for limited technologies. And that's the end of part 2 of section 7, and we will pick up with section 3 in the next video.